friendships touch so many of our lives. I've got two of my best friends from growing up. They're here for a reason. It's not necessarily because of me, but they knew my father. My dad was the type that no matter what age of person it was, once they met him, but once somebody met my dad, there was a kinship over the years. And we all know my dad well enough that he was very opinionated. He was very vocal. Most evenings you could probably go out to dinner with him and agree on everything, but maybe one point. By the end of the night, you knew you were wrong, even if he wasn't. If he was the one wrong, you walked away thinking you were. But then that would end, and that was just part of the friendship that he had developed with so many people. I had wrote down several different items that I wanted to touch basis on, especially after today being here for so many hours and so many different people walking in and out. As you know, he worked at Whirlpool for over 30 years. That was one of his great, he wouldn't admit it, one of his great loves, but also one of his great aggravations in life. Whirlpool was work to him, as it should be. It was a means of an income. But those 30 years there, he met a lot of people. He worked with a lot of people that would be friends forever. And those people that have come in today or that we will see tomorrow from Whirlpool, I'll let you know that if I don't know you by face or if I did not know them by face today, that I have heard their name, I've heard their nickname, I can tell you what they have done because all of us were a big part of his life. If you remember back in the day when it was easier to sit down at a dinner table and eat together as a family. That would be something that would come up every evening. Who did what at work? Good or bad? Everybody that was around my father at some point in time, I've heard a story about you. Good or bad? Good or bad? And for those friends that have been here throughout the day that go back to high school or not more than an hour or two ago, somebody that was in the Army Reserve with him, or those that were in high school and are still friends today. There's a reason for that, because of the man that he was. And, you got to admit you enjoyed the aggravation of him at times as well. That's just who he was. Dad as a provider, I want to speak on that. Growing up, we never knew if we had money. We never knew if we were poor or if we were rich. We lived good. And I couldn't tell you today, whenever he passed on, if he was penniless or not. He was a very good provider to us, mainly because of the skills that he had, the house that he was able to build upon, and the like. So that was something that I think is a major accomplishment, being a fantastic family provider. A couple of other notes. Somebody reminded me of a story who will be here for the funeral tomorrow, John McNeely. One of the first things that came to his mind after I told him on the phone yesterday that Dad had passed, he says, oh my, the first thing that he could remember was our house seemed to be kind of a meeting area in our neighborhood. Not necessarily because of the location, but as Phil will remember, we had the big long porch off of the garage, and there was a church pew that sat there, and you could line up 8 or 9 kids on that church pew on a summer evening before we would play whatever game it would be as darkness would roll in. John says, do you remember your dad would come out after just painting those white posts, and there we'd already have our feet on it before it was dry, leaning against it. And I said, yes, I remember very well. I remember well after you all left too. But that was one of the things that John had remembered. Again, John will be here tomorrow. But we talked about Dad's woodworking abilities. That was another great love and another great aggravation of his life. He would tell you that he didn't take any enjoyment in it most of the time, but he did. He did. He would work on projects, work on the house, and I guarantee if you go back to that house now or any of the projects, if you've had a chance to see the videos that's been going, some of the clocks and furniture that he has built, you wouldn't find any fault in it. Only Fred would find the faults. As I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with Dad as a boy on those Saturdays out in the garage. My dad, if you've ever heard John Foxworthy's Going Off to Sears with Dad on Saturday, that was my dad. We would go, it wasn't Saturday usually, it was Friday evening. We would go to Sears and we would look at the Craftsman tools. He would check on what was on sale and he would watch it until it came time for him to get one or to buy it. The same thing was whenever we went to Keister's, at the old Keister's on Green River Road. He would walk in, start towards the back, and everybody that worked at Keister's knew him. Hey, Fred, what's the project this weekend, Fred? And he'd go back to the back corner, and I was with him when this was happening. And they'd already be ready to take his order on whatever plywood or whatever he needed. Everybody knew him, and it went on to each and every building center on up the highway. They knew what he did. They enjoyed, I could tell they enjoyed him coming in during those times. And I was with him, and he may not have noticed, but while he was doing these projects, I didn't realize it either, but I guess I was paying close attention somehow. Because I do have a love-hate relationship with woodworking as well. As a matter of fact, most of his tools I have accumulated over the past couple of years when he decided he was going to start backing off of it. So my father, to me, was a great teacher, even though he didn't know it and I didn't know it.